What is going on, everybody? Is that like my signature opening? I think it is. Episode 21. Coming up at you very, very shortly here. I don't even know what to say about this episode. I sit down with my wonderful significant other, Christine Glavey, and the episode itself is amazing and awesome. I feel like we were both retired, but there's still some really good stuff here, and we almost like forced it into play, but still great. The audio is what was very frustrating for me. I have no idea. There's so many different noises and interruptions and just stupid things. And again, it was one of those ones where I was like, do I put this out? Do I not put this out? But I'm putting it out because it's worth it. It's great. You bear with some of the crappy audio recording here. For some reason, 21 episodes, and I still don't have this down. I'm still learning, still growing, but it's still a good episode and a lot to be taken away from it. So, obviously, as I've stated already, I sit down with Christine Glavey, and we discuss more of what it's been like since I've gotten out of rehab, the positive things that we've been working on in our relationship and trust, and what else did we discuss? I don't know, good stuff all around in this episode. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Room9podcast.com is still up and running. Please go to it, fill out a contact form, let me know you're there. You can get all up to date with emails and when our blogs come out, when episodes come out, and other things of that nature. There's a support us page where you can donate any amount of money of your choosing to help spread the word and this message that we are giving out at Room 9. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. A quick right to it intro. And make sure you get on our social media pages, Facebook group, Room 9 Podcast. We're trying to get discussions going about each episode and other issues that are going on. And even if you would like a certain topic to be talked about on this episode, I would love for you guys to hit me up on that. Room9podcast.com or social media, Room 9 Podcast, at Room 9 Podcast. You'll find it. Spray painted wall with the train track in front of it. There you go. So episode 21 with Christine Glavey is here and at you. Sound good? How are you, baby?
I'm great. How are you?
Very good. Our second episode of Room 9 Podcast. Forgot about my new theme song. The new Room 9 theme song. Written by David Riffle.
I like it.
I think so. We'll see. I realized on the royalty-free website where I was doing the intro song from, actually for some reason specifically mentions in small letters about can't use it for a podcast or radio show. I was like, why? That's awfully specific, but
that's weird.
Yeah, I thought it was awfully weird as well. But anywho, it's our second episode of Room 9.
It is.
First one, the first one was more about like my story or our story, but you know what I mean. Your view of my addiction. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So I don't know what we're going to talk about on this one. We didn't really discuss it very much.
We did a little bit.
Yeah, trust was one.
Yes, and also like talking about the positives after, because I feel like we were dwelling on, specifically the addiction. And I feel as if we cut off when you were in jail, like when you got arrested.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember where that episode ended.
Yeah, I think we pretty much all just talked about everything pretty much well leading up to it. I'm trying to recall if we talked about kind of the now and all that, but
there was a big gap in time where we did not speak at all.
Yes, huge. So it would have been April to July.
Correct.
Yeah, I was arrested in April 12th, and then, yeah, I went from April 12th to jail to the first rehab. It was late into that, too. Probably into like 40-something days of my first rehab. So that was a while. There was a lot of time for both of us to be doing thinking and searching and working on ourselves. So I guess, yeah, why don't you share a little bit about those months of of me in jail and rehabs.
The months that you were gone?
Yes, like what you were going through, what were you thinking other than I'm going to kill him?
No, I was not thinking that. What was I going through? What was I thinking? I had a moment, and I could not tell you at what point in those 3 months that we weren't talking it was, but I had a moment where I kind of offered it all up. I cried and I was just like, take it from me. Do what you will with it. I can't do this anymore as far as dwelling on it and rehashing it and thinking it up. And I became extremely comfortable at that point, whatever that point was. I'm sure it's in my little notebook that I keep, but I don't have that with me. But I became very comfortable with the I don't know. Yeah, I became very comfortable with not knowing what was going to happen, not thinking about what had happened, and just being at peace with I don't know.
How do you think you got to the point of that? Because so many people, including myself, are so easy to say it. Like, all right, it's like living in the now. Like, I'm just going to be in the now. I don't care, I don't know what's happening right now, and what's going to happen, how things are going to play out. How do you get to a state like that? As if there's one recipe.
Yeah.
For it all. But I mean, it's very difficult. You don't find too many people who are able to get to a point.
Well, part of it is probably where our views differ of how I got to that point. And the other thing I'll say about it before I talk about where we disagree is it's work. It doesn't mean that once you offer it up and say, take this from me, I need to be at peace above all else with it. It doesn't mean it just goes away. So it's continuous work. I mean, when it creeps back in, you have to be an aware person and be aware enough to know that it's creeping back in and kind of catch it. But I would say faith and trust, offering it up to kind of whatever power that be that you particularly believe in.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Whether that be God or spirit or the universe or whatever your ideas are on that. But I think you have to have faith and trust in something bigger than you in order to do that. I think you need to have faith in something, in saying I don't know, and being able to say to other people I don't know, but bigger than that, being able to say to yourself I don't know what's going to happen, but I need to be okay. I need to be okay with whatever happens. And I think that involves some trust and some faith in something that is much bigger than you. And I think I developed that in the 3 months that we weren't talking. I mean, I think it was a process for me. I think I was developing it already, but that was a huge test in my development and a huge breakthrough.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Glad I could help out. That's the only reason I was addicted to heroin, is so I could help you do that. And I'm glad it worked.
Yes.
Plan worked, everybody.
And as we've talked about before, I came to a lot of realizations of never having been alone and dealing, a lot of issues came up for me with why I'd never been alone and why I never wanted to be alone. And if you were around, I also wouldn't have been able to deal with that whole concept of being comfortable. Like, why am I so anxious with being alone, or what does that mean? Have I ever actually been alone? Mm-hmm. And that whole idea. So, that was another piece, I think, in those 3 months that was interesting to work on. It was also interesting in that time span of people not knowing exactly what to ask you or what to say to you. It was kind of interesting how people interacted with you. Some people would say so what's going on with that? But other people, it was just
awkward. And oh my gosh, I can only imagine.
And I wasn't. I mean, I very rarely am, but I'm not someone that offers it up there without it being asked about. So I'm not just going to start talking about it. But if someone would ask, I would be very open. So I feel as if a lot of people didn't ask because they didn't really want to know, like, where I was in that point. There were some, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people did not want to know what was going on, or what I was thinking, or what I was going through. I don't think they wanted to go there.
Yeah, some people are very awkward about it. Some people don't want any kind of conflict, and not really conflict isn't the word. What's the word? Just awkwardness, I guess, is really what people come into in situations like that and don't want to bring it up, but expect you to kind of almost bring it up.
Yeah. There were a lot of people with expectations. I mean, I'm someone that is very independent, and I'm not someone, well, I mean, I think everybody is to an extent, but I feel as if I've worked on the fact that I'm not someone who needs validation from other people. I guess we all do in our own ways, but I recognize that in myself, and being honest about where I was in the situation, I think, was making some people, like, I think there was an expectation that I was supposed to feel a certain way, like I was supposed to be angry and had written you off, and a lot of people had a very hard time with my grace and forgiveness in it. I think there was an expectation of anger and hate, and I'm like, that's the easy way. Yeah.
It is. And
that could be the easy way.
And usually those are the people who need that from somebody else in their life and never got it or don't have it, who sit there and expect you, or maybe need to do it for somebody else too. They expect you, like, you should be more angry. You shouldn't be so, understanding of the situation or whatever it may be. And it's so funny to see people almost like project that onto other people's issues. So you found this, like, piece of the unknown.
Yes.
Essentially.
I embrace the I don't know.
The I don't know, which is huge.
It is. And I became very consistent and disciplined with meditation. And at the end of every meditation, I was kind of doing this before, but I did it a lot and really, like, felt it, as far as, like, saying, like, thy will be done, like, whatever happens, happens. And we've disagreed about this, but I've always believed that everything happens for a reason. And that could be a discussion or a debate with whoever wants to debate it. But I've always felt that things fall into place. And I've told you before, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, had everything not happen, I don't think we would be together now, because we were heading downhill. I mean...
Well, yeah, we were heading downhill because of my addiction, though. So,
right.
I mean, what had to happen in order for it to get taken care of is definitely what happened, obviously. I mean, I definitely agree with that. Everything happens for a reason thing is not the place or time right now, because we're talking about other things, and this is an addiction podcast, not a philosophical one. So you found this piece in the unknown that I don't know. You have came to the point, because I've even said, too, what happened, really, I don't think, and I think we talked about that in the last podcast, too, I don't think anything I wouldn't have been able to change and fix the things in me if I didn't go to jail, like if that didn't happen. So we talked about that, and for me, going on at that point, and I've mentioned it so many times probably on this podcast, is that obviously what I was going through was completely different. Having to deal with, guilt and shame and not being in self-pity. And I had to make that decision of not being in self-pity and really trained my brain to get into that. And even I guess I was too, and obviously the I don't know, because I didn't know where we stood with everything.
Right. I mean, the only updates either one of us would get were from your family.
Yeah, my parents and sister.
Like kind of the go-between.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so I was in that state of really knowing, like, I don't know where we're at. I don't know where we stand. I have no idea if I had a future with you at that time. But I knew mentally I had to, like, change things up. If I wanted to enjoy life at all, I had to change things up for sure. And I was at that point of, if I don't mentally discipline myself to stay out of self-pity, go into more positive things about myself, I'm going to never be able to get this huge monkey off of my back. This monkey of addiction, for lack of a better term. So that's kind of the state that I was at. And that was from April 12th to, I think it must have been like July 3rd? 2nd or 3rd?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
When we talked for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Which was pretty amazing to hear your voice. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, we talked for quite a bit.
Yeah, like an hour and a half or so.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
I mean, neither of us knew exactly what the future held for us as a couple. I came to the realization I tried to take something from everything, and I knew I didn't doubt our connection. I doubted was trying to figure out, I guess, more without you, a time frame, like of how much was real and when did it start and when did our relationship actually end, without having you as kind of a bumper of, and I did ask your family a couple times, like, has he said anything about when this started? Has he said anything about, because I think I spent a lot of time before I let things go of trying to figure out, like, well, how long was this going on? What was real and what wasn't? And I just came to the conclusion when I kind of released everything and gave it up to a higher power of, I knew our connection was real at some point, and I had to stop obsessing over the details of it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think this is something that comes along with people whose loved ones are in addiction. I feel like they think because person that they love or in love with or whatever it may be is using drug. And now obviously there's a lot of lying going on. There's a lot of crappy things going on that can put a wedge into things. But like the good experiences that we had, the laughing, like my love for you and everything, I don't think was gone whatsoever. Like those good times were really genuine, laughing good times, even though I had this huge thing on my shoulders weighing me down. And I feel like that's a big like misconception. Like, was any of this real? Was this all a lie? And I feel like naturally that would come with it. But that's something I always found, like, or how we always laugh when you're like, oh, you're probably high in that picture. Like, I wasn't high 24 hours a day. If I was, I wouldn't have ever been dope sick. But, well, I think, it's like you're really high.
Yeah. When you're not the addict, so to speak, you have no sense of when you were, you know what I mean? So you just assume that there's that cloud hanging over it. Mm-hmm. You don't really know what's real and what isn't.
Yeah, but I always think that's funny how, it's not funny, but I always think that's something that needs to be talked about more too. Because it wasn't when I said I loved you and I was addicted to heroin, didn't mean I didn't love you. Even though my actions did a lot of things that might have even said otherwise. But there was always the connection was always there. I feel like I just weighed it down with the addiction. I don't think the connection ever went anywhere. I think it just got blocked a little bit and weighed down. But I think our connection especially was always there.
I mean, if it wasn't, things could have gone a drastically different way.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, I'm not a vindictive or mean person, so I don't think I would have been out for like retribution. I still would have wanted to help you, but they definitely could have gone a different way. Mm-hmm. If I didn't still have love for you or think that you were, recognizing what I always recognized that you had within you.
Yeah, and jail and rehabs is where I learned to recognize it, which has been pretty awesome. Still not quite sure what it is, but it's there.
I told you lots.
You have told me many times. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I found it so easy to be able to like slip into a very negative like thinking, poor me, self-pity thing. So easily able to go in. I've seen it in so many people in jail, especially in jail. You have so much time on your own by yourself, sitting in a room. Half a day, pretty much 12 hours out of the day, at least you're locked in this room alone, and you really have nothing but time to think. That's where the rubber meets the road right there. I made it good. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is how are you going to take this moment to teach yourself? Because getting into self-pity, you're not going to learn nothing. You don't learn nothing in self-pity. And that just makes time.
Do I want to learn anything in this way again?
Yeah. That's another good one.
Think about.
I know, as much as those crappy times, you learn so much and very quickly. It's like you want to try to avoid them.
Correct. Hopefully.
Not dive into those ones intentionally anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't think you'd be wanting to go back to a jail cell alone so you could think.
Yeah, no. Oh, I need to really have some good quality alone time here. Let me go rob somebody.
Yeah. No. And then we didn't see each other. I mean, 3 months was when we talked.
Yeah, shit. I didn't see you till when? Was it August?
I think it was August.
Yeah.
Beginning of August.
That first.
Because when you got to Horizons, you couldn't leave for a little bit.
A few weeks.
Right.
And that was July. I think that was July 12th.
When you got to Horizons?
Yeah. I want to say July 12th. Because I think I remember the day number being the same as my arrest date.
And then you couldn't go anywhere.
For a couple weeks. I couldn't get passes. And finally I got passes and I was able to spend some time with you. That's hands down the longest we've ever gone without being next to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nuts. But I was able to start talking. And I think, honestly, the way it went was good. It wasn't just a quick, like, all right, I didn't see you for a few months, now I'm back living with you. Which obviously isn't happening now. It was a slow progression of us hanging out and talking. So it was on the phone. And then it was, seeing you a couple hours here and there. And then moron. And
did you just call me a moron?
I did. I know.
Thanks.
I don't know, because we've worked on, I've been nothing but completely open with you about my recovery, and I think it builds trust. What do you, how do you see my recovery going from your point of view, as far as, or I guess it's not the right thing, how do you feel, the way that we are coming back and slowly, of which endpoint obviously being living together again, the way that's going? Because obviously there's going to be people listening to this who are in the same situation.
Right. I think it has to be slow. I think for us to jump back to where we were, which once again, like I say, I don't know when I was trying to figure out the timeline, but to jump back to it, I never felt was a good idea. Even us talking or seeing each other, I was always very nervous about that, because I was like, oh God, is this too soon? Is this going to bring everything up? I mean, that was always a constant concern of, is this too much? Or, of course, you're always, as a family member of an addict, thinking about, is this going to cause a relapse, or is this not that you can ever prevent that or predict that, but you're still always thinking it. Oh, is this, if we watched a movie together about addiction, as a family member who isn't an addict, you think, is this going to bring back feelings of wanting to, you think all those things, because you're, I guess, always as happy as I've been, you're always waiting for the shoe to drop a little bit. So yeah, the slower the better. I feel as if that would be the best advice that I could give.
Yeah, because really, a general thing, a common thing, I should say, in recovery is you shouldn't date anybody for a year. I mean, obviously we've been together for over 5, and for obvious reasons.
Right.
To rush back into a relationship is not the smartest thing to do. So many people make that mistake of, or even the rehab romances and shit like that. It's insane to want to put that, to rush something like that. But it's easy to do, because at the same time, I constantly had to remind myself in rehab, okay, take your time, and you have to learn what you need to learn while you are here, or else you're going to be back. So many people in there, I got to get out, I got to work, I got to get my kids, I want to see my girl, I got to get out of here, It's stop. Slow down. Learn every moment you can while you're in here, because what is 6 months compared to 10 years of the rest of your life of doing this over and over again, of staying in the cycle? Break the cycle and just learn everything you possibly can. And that's really every day, multiple times a day, I was telling myself that. You got to be patient. You got to be super patient. To get onto reintegration, which is Horizons Village, where you can just basically come and go 12 hours a day, as long as you fill out a pass. I didn't even ask to get on it. My counselor said, you think it's time? I think it's time. Let's get you on it. So even those things, even though I wanted to get on it, I was just patient, and really, even coming to an Oxford House the whole time, I'm like, I don't want to go to Oxford House. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And when it came up, and he suggested it, my counselor, and I just went with it, because I know if I rushed out any of this process, it would be bad. It could mean another year or 2 gone.
Right.
And I don't even think you would ever go through this again, honestly. I think I always tell people that you're too smart, and you will protect yourself as much as you love me, and you protect your kids, and would not go through this again if it happened. And I was like, it was another thing. I got to make sure I get this right. There's no rush in this. I cannot rush out of here. And that was along the whole, maybe even the jail thing, though. I really became at peace in jail. It was crazy how peaceful I became, of walking in a circle in the little dorm area with reading while I'm reading, or sitting by the window and reading and writing constantly for hours and hours a day, meditating. I really became at peace in there.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy, yeah. There was times that people would come, days where different inmates would come walking up and talking to me for advice. I felt like a little jail Buddha. Because I would be sitting in my bed with the door open or whatever, reading in bed in air quotes. And they would come up and like, I'm freaking out. There's some people that were in there for only 2 days. Dude, you need to get it together, man. You got a ways to go. It's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
But it can drive people nuts.
I could see that. I would struggle with that.
It did, but I did find some crazy way. I found just peace. Just let it be. Was I excited when I found out I was leaving? Hell yeah, I was pumped up. But at the same time, I was good where I was at that moment. And that's why I feel like every situation that you're in, you can make something of it that's positive. You can learn from it. You can gain something from it. And that's just a choice.
Right.
I mean, that's up to you. And then you can go into self-pity in any situation. There's that stupid saying, the cup's half full or half empty is the same thing. They're both right. If something bad happens to you, whether it's your fault or not, you can sit there and feel sorry for yourself, or you can stay awake and learn and see what you need to fix or change. Whether it's your fault or not, it doesn't matter. You can do those things in any situation. And the fact that we both did that, I told you at times when I talked to you on the phone and everything, like I felt like somehow we were getting closer, and we went months without talking at one point. But for some reason, I felt every day, I felt like we were getting closer somehow, which is really weird.
It is. But I think it also, making that choice, it is a choice of how you interpret a situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, and what both of us, well, I wouldn't say you were an optimist. Would definitely not be the way I would describe you to someone.
Oh, you're such a brat. What's
But
Sean like? He's an optimist.
Yeah, that would not be my first adjective at all.
Such
Optimistic, no.
Such a brat.
But I would say in general, I am a happy person, and we're happy when we're together.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, I guess when we were in that place of not knowing what was going to happen, you can take two different paths, and life is going to get a lot easier or a lot more difficult, and that's within your hands. The woe is me does nothing. It makes life a lot tougher to get through.
It makes time drag. It makes time terrible. And then you have no growth from it.
Right.
And if you're all of that.
A naturally impatient person as I am, something that I've tried to work on myself for a really long time, being pessimistic fuels that impatience, where if you can be happy, make the choice to be happy, you can also tackle that impatience.
Yeah, and some people might hear that and be like, oh, it's hard to, make a choice to be happy.
It's really not.
But it's not, yeah, and that's what I was kind of getting at. It's funny how we keep ourselves angry sometimes.
I've told you several times that we've talked about that I was probably one of the angriest, most controlling people, and it's a choice. And I think things force that for you to deal with, to change that, and it did for me. But I had a decision to make, like, am I going to be this angry, miserable, controlling person because things aren't working so well and I'm not I'm not doing so well. So what choice am I going to make?
A great example of that is, for instance, if something happens and you're pissed off about it, and then somebody answers the door, and you can automatically switch a gear where you're not angry about it. Oh, hey, how's it going? And you can totally switch that gear, and then all of a sudden, a half hour later, that person leaves, and you're getting yourself angry again by what you're thinking about, and you're getting yourself more amped up and pissed off about it, as if doing that is making the situation better. We convince ourselves to keep angry and to stay angry.
Fake it until you make it.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, staying angry, it's like, it is. It's so funny how it's really just anger is in itself is a very quick thing. Comes and goes.
It's very bad for you.
Very quickly. And then all of a sudden you're holding on to it and you're keeping yourself angry. And it is.
For what purpose?
Yeah, and what purpose does it serve?
It doesn't.
When you really think about it.
I firmly believe it made me sick.
Yeah. Yeah, stress, anxiety, anger, or I should say stress and anxiety, I think, come from being upset and angry about something.
Yes. And
then because of that, you can physiologically get sick. whatever it may be. And that puts a lot of strain on everything, which is
It
crazy.
does.
Yeah.
Building up trust is a work in progress.
Building up trust, yeah. I think that just takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's, speaking of patience, I think that's something.
Well, in our situation, it's hard to go from, it's tough to go from one thing. It's almost like you're demoted. Like
Yeah.
you were here and now you're like dating.
Yeah.
It's a demotion. And that's a tough thing to deal with. I feel as if it's necessary, but it's hard to scale back.
No, it is. I will say, like, something that I, now being the addict, that I've had to work on a lot, especially since us seeing each other. I mean, not every day, but at least talking every day, but seeing each other, more than half the week. When there has been the very few disagreements that we have, I've had to learn to, like, there's times where I feel like I shouldn't have an opinion because of what I put you through. I shouldn't be annoyed by this or that because look at what I put you through. And I think that's something for, any addict who's in a relationship listening to this to make sure you don't do. You still have a right to have a disagreement and speak your opinion about it. And that's something.
No, you don't.
And that's something I've had to really work on, like feeling guilty because of what I put you through and my mistakes, or even in our situation in general, when you tell me you miss me and you wish I was home with you, even though it can't happen right now, not feeling guilty over those things and feeling like, okay, if we have a disagreement, I'm allowed to have a difference of opinion. It's obviously as long as that's gone about the right way. But that is something, I've had to deal with a lot since we've been out is, all right, I'm allowed to still like speak up about some. I'm trying to think of the one situation where we were even.
I think through everything too, I realized in the time that we were apart, that was a pretty difficult situation. And I also came to the realization that I would be okay. And even in the times that I've worried that something would trigger a relapse or something along those lines, I've had to say to myself, it'll be okay. You kind of like talk yourself off the ledge a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was something big too with me, was getting into that. And again, it's self-pity, is getting into that self-pity thing that would have caused me to, relapse or be miserable in general in the past, was, seeing something making me feel guilty and then wanting to get rid of that guilt somehow. And that's another thing, like I'm trying to think of an example, and there should be an easy example that I could give. I mean, I guess, for instance, what I kind of just brought up, having a difference of opinion and then feeling guilty, like, oh, I shouldn't have any opinion. Lots of times that would give, in the past, that would have given me guilt, and I would have felt like a piece of crap over it. And not allowing that to happen was, a huge thing. And then lots of times that would affect me for a long time, a very long time, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult to navigate as far as figuring out. But like you said, over time it gets less difficult to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what you feel, if your whole fear is triggering a relapse, and that's what you're thinking, like, oh, from coming from the opposite of an addict, from a family member or a loved one saying, I don't know if I should express this opinion, or I don't know if I should say I'm annoyed now. Is this what's gonna?
Yeah, it's not your responsibility to worry about that.
Right. But it's very difficult as a family member to not worry about that. It's much easier said than done. And it's funny because you deal with it and you don't, as the day-to-day is going on and you're doing well, you think less and less about it. There have been moments when it's come back. We watched Beautiful Boy and Ben is back, and the whole thought of that possibly happening was like, with both of those movies, really, you see the struggle and you see what the family members are going through, and you see that, and it's like it all hits you again of that being a possibility.
It is. It's tough. There's that saying, relapse is part of recovery. And that's a tough saying to live with, because that almost makes, I feel like they could give somebody, all right, well,
a justification.
Yeah, I can relapse now.
Right.
They say it's part of recovery.
Right.
So it's like a tough saying, but it's, it's something you want to say to somebody who relapsed, but you don't want to say it to somebody who almost is like, has been clean for a while and, oh, don't worry, relapse is part of recovery, just so you know. Oh, really? It is. All right, thanks.
Right.
I needed to know that. No, I'll go relapse. So it's one of those weird sayings, but I mean, it happens. But I've met plenty of people who have just got it the first time too, who have, all right, here, I found this out. It's time. And it's like almost like a switch. And I think the number one thing, and I say this all the time, it's not dealing with the addiction itself. It's dealing with everything that caused the addiction. And that's what people don't get. And it's about developing those introspective tools to make you self-aware enough to know how to deal with guilt, shame, anger, whatever it is, sadness, depression, like how to deal with these mental things that you come across in a correct manner so that you don't want to numb it with a drug. Because that's what I think that is. And they do a pretty good job about dealing with that in rehab. Unfortunately, you get so many people who, my advantage going in there was since my mid-20s, I've been into, spirituality, Eastern philosophical things, psychology, philosophy. I've always loved those things. So I've had all these tools in my hand that I can use to work on myself, which a lot of people that come in there don't know any of that. And I honestly don't think they teach enough of that in rehab. So they do more of it than I expected, but I don't think they teach enough. There's not enough things there to teach people self-awareness and to be introspective.
That's a tough thing to teach.
It is. I don't know. I don't even know if it's something you can teach. I look at people in my Oxford house and there's no kind of awareness to anything.
Yeah. I've met that's a tough thing to teach.
A lot of people that have no kind of self-awareness of, I did this. This was wrong. I need to work on that. Or, I'm feeling guilt. Why am I feeling guilt? I want to become vulnerable and open and completely honest with yourself is a lot of work, and it's hard work. And that sometimes it's not easy to go through the things that you're not good at and have to change those and fix those. And I guess I really don't know how you teach those to somebody, because you have to somehow get somebody to be willing
to
talk about the crappy things about themselves at the same time learn how to love and accept and forgive and have confidence in themselves.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's very tough. You also think a lot as a family member going forward after, what are situations going to look like? We talked about this on the last podcast of me thinking, once I knew that I would be talking to you of, I talked about not knowing sober Sean, like, is he going to be fun? What situations should we avoid? What things should I not talk about? Those kinds of things, because you don't know. That's a tough thing to navigate going forward too. And
really, I don't think it should be anything. Like, you shouldn't have to not talk about something just because of me. People should have to not drink around me because I'm a recovering addict. That's one of the biggest things that has drove me nuts. Like, my dad coming up to me and being like, you care, when my grandpa's over on St. Patrick's Day, you care if I give your grandfather a beer? Like, yes. People aren't going to change their lives for me and my mistakes and things I need to fix in my life. Like, somebody with an eating disorder, people aren't going to not eat around them.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing. No, I'm going to have to learn to be around other things.
Coming from the side of not having an addiction, that's a tough thing, though. For us, it's not a big deal because I'm not avoiding anything. I'm not someone who gets home from work and is like, oh, God, I need a beer. Like, that's never been my go-to. But, there's definitely situations, I think, the two of us haven't been to our first concert yet. What is that going to look like? What does that look? Because, concerts we've gone to in the past, we've done different things. So what does that look like? And to be honest with you, I just went to 2 and it's fine.
Yeah.
And they weren't with, but you think about those things, whether it's having a fire in the backyard where we would have a beer or, just different things like that. You think of those situations going forward, and they really aren't anything to worry about.
No, they're really not. Because I see it, every situation we've had up to this point together has been so unbelievably awesome. Because again, I feel like we've gotten closer through this situation and stronger. And I can't imagine when we go camping, not having beers is going to make it a blah time. I know it's not going to, because of the fun we have watching paint dry.
Right. But you do think about those situations. And I think for myself, I can't speak for everybody else, but I guess you kind of think of other people or factors that are beyond your control, I guess, which is one thing, again, you have no control. So
No.
If you realize that from the outset,
It's an
that you can
illusion.
only control yourself, that you just kind of have to let that go.
Yeah.
Because you can't expect everybody else's lives to be totally different because yours is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you talk about like the ripple effect.
I mean, granted, somebody shouldn't be like right in front of your face. Oh, this beer is so good.
Yeah.
Like, granted, somebody shouldn't be doing that. But at the same time, yes, you have to, people are going to go on and they should be living their lives and not be walking on eggshells and not be worrying about that. Because it's up to me as the addict to be the one changing and working and fixing things on myself and how I'm reacting and going to deal with those situations. If I don't want to be around it, I'm not going to go be around it until I'm ready to be around it.
Or you leave and go to a meeting if you're struggling with being around it, which is something that some of my family members do.
Yeah, or you pick up that phone and call, you know, your sponsor or a good friend or whoever it may be, but you have plans and set for if you are feeling the temptation.
I thought it was interesting. I read that story. I think I did show it to you, but the lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls, Johnny Resnick, is a recovering addict, and he talked about when they have parties or they have people over, and if there's, which normally they said there is, if there's alcohol there, they just at the end of the night basically have everybody who brought something or whatever take it with them,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very simple solution. I was like, oh, like it sounds very simple, but I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool. But they don't say no because they know for people that it's not a problem for, that's something that they look forward to doing. But they just kind of say, you know, whatever you don't finish or whatever's in here,
bring with you.
Take it with you. Leave with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different solutions to that, to situations like that.
I mean, there have been times I've thought where I've talked to you about, I think the most recent one was probably St. Patrick's Day, where I'm like, is this tough for you? Because that really, there's no other activity other than drinking that St. Patrick's Day is really for. So,
well, I've always said, like, I've always told this to all the counselors and group leaders, because they always, holidays meant, you know, there was no holiday where I was like going out and partying. Like, I didn't go out and party. I never did. I didn't go to bars. I didn't go out and drink. I like, you know, doing my drinking and even heroin and other, you know, the other drugs I was doing while I was usually being productive, cleaning, doing something, or with a small, close group of friends. I mean, that was it. So holidays was never like, oh, I can't wait till Thanksgiving. Can't wait till St. Patrick's Day. I'll get hammered. Like, those were never anything I ever did. So that was always kind of, holidays have never really brought up anything for me to date, where I've been like, oh, man. So that's always been, I mean, I know obviously it's different for everybody. Everybody's different, but there was never that time or situation where that's happened. Like, St. Patrick's Day was another day of sobriety for me. It was not a day where I was like, oh, I really wish I could drink now.
yeah.
I mean, it didn't even cross my mind.
What about at a concert?
No, I haven't been to one yet.
That's, yeah, I know.
But I can't, I mean, the mindset I'm in now, I would say it's going to be the same thing. I mean, but I don't know. I haven't been to a concert yet. I'll let you know.
All right. You're going to have to leave by yourself then.
That's messed up.
All right. I'll see you later.
But I can't imagine. Yeah, I cannot imagine it would be that bad to the point where I'd have to leave a show because I couldn't not drink. That'd be crazy. I'd have a lot more work to do than I expected on myself then.
Yeah.
Not that I don't have a lot to work to do. I think there's always going to be a lot of work to do, whether you're an addict or not, as an individual. But yeah, I don't think that would be an issue.
Yeah, I would hope not.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah, then the trust thing. I mean, we talked about trust on our walk the other day. And I mean, I told you when we do move back in together, I want that to be pretty much, well, you know, where it should be in any relationship. Because even me, like when I know one of my biggest things when I was using was going somewhere and taking forever and changing the story up. Like, oh, I got to go here because of this. And now I got to go here because of this. And I remember the one time I was actually doing something, and I think I was taking Matt to cash his paycheck, and they wouldn't cash it at Top's customer service, so I had to actually take him somewhere else, and it took longer than expected. And I knew, like, I could see you were a little, you know, disheveled when I got back, and I felt guilty over that. Like, oh my gosh, you know, I don't want her to be worrying. Like, I'm feeling guilty because you're worrying because of what my actions were in the past.
Well, what were the 3 things with your actions?
How's it go again?
Predictable.
Yeah, what the heck? I've heard it a million
reliable.
times. Predictable, consistent.
I thought the word was reliable.
Consistency.
Predictability.
Is it reliability? I don't know, damn it.
I thought it was reliability.
Oh, I know consistency.
Like if you say you're going to do something,
you do
or
it.
you're going somewhere, you do it.
And the more, consistency, the more
right.
often it happens, the bigger the trust part gets.
Right.
And and I think it just takes time, and obviously that actually happening, what I say, and how long I'm going to be, and it be that long.
Right. That's right.
That is right. So yeah, I mean, it just takes time. It's a lot of work.
It is.
But worth it.
It is worth it.
If you can do it, yeah. There's a lot of people too, I don't know, like who are in relationships with, who've been in a relationship with somebody, whether it's like the mother or father of their kids, that are an addict still, or that are in recovery. And I'm just so thankful. Like you said, you don't drink. You could never drink again and be completely fine with it, and all those other things, that you've never been into it, because that screws a lot of people up. That
would be very tough to come out of that setting. And
I mean, it's like a couple who both smoke cigarettes and one of them tries to quit. Like that.
Yeah, it doesn't. I can't imagine that would work.
Yeah.
If it does, it has to be very rare. Yeah.
It's definitely a rarity. So that's another thing I always tell people that I had in my corner with our relationship. Oh, we got over an hour here, baby.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It always flies by.
It does.
No matter who I'm doing this podcast with, it flies. It's amazing how sitting in chairs with headphones and microphone, how quick time can go.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Our episode 2 coming to an end. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of those. I'm sure you'll be my most frequent guest on the old Room 9.
Reappearing guest?
Oh, yeah. Gotta have those.
Yeah. Give a little update.
Yeah. We're writing a book. We got to get back going on that.
I'm a little farther
about
than
addiction.
You.
All right, you're like one chapter. Relax.
Okay, but
no, just saying.
Just saying.
I'm just saying. Relax.
I'm just saying too.
Well, I'm really just saying.
I'm waiting for you to catch up.
Oh, you're putting it on me?
I am. Yeah, the book will be good.
Look for that in about 10 years.
No, we'll be less than that.
We got more episodes. We're thinking about starting our own podcast.
Well, we actually did before this.
Yeah, that's right. Even before the addiction.
During it.
Was it during it? Maybe the beginning stages?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was. I mean, your opium den was already started.
You're such a brat. Opium den.
So it was definitely...
That was ridiculous.
During it.
But yeah, we have an episode of that, and we did another episode, so starting that up.
Yeah, that would be interesting to listen to. The first one that we did.
Actually, I think Dave sent it to me today. So he sent me a huge file of stuff we had. But anyway, this is stuff for off the podcast. So,
okay.
All right, people. Thanks for listening, as always. I love you guys. Thanks for your support. Bye-bye. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to the full episode. I know there was some audio parts that were kind of a pain in the ass, but yeah, good to go. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Get on our Facebook page and hit us up and let us know what you thought about this episode. And I will be talking to you guys next week, Monday, which I believe is April 8th, when I release another episode. So, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your encouragement. Those little messages I get throughout the week are more encouraging than you guys will ever know. And I will be in touch. Much love. Have a good week, everybody. Bye-bye.